Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking an incredible story about how a foolish insult from a rich landowner nearly triggered a massacre, and how one of the most brilliant diplomatic moves you'll ever hear about stopped an entire army dead in its tracks. So let's dive right in. The situation is about as tense as it gets. A small army is marching, ready to carry out a massacre. So the big question we're tackling is, how on earth does a single conversation manage to stop them? All right, to understand what's going on, you have to picture the scene. We're out in the wilderness, and there's this fragile, unspoken peace between two very powerful men. You've got David, a famous warrior, a future king, actually, who's on the run. And on the other side, there's a guy named Nabal, who's incredibly wealthy, but also known for being, well, a real piece of work. Now let's meet the main players here, because the contrast is everything. You've got Nabal, the husband, who is described as surly and mean in his dealings, just a nasty guy. And then you have his wife, Abigail, who is called an intelligent and beautiful woman. You could not find two more different people, and that difference is about to become seriously important. So what's the setup? Well, for a while now, there's been this sort of unspoken deal going on. David and his men have been camping out near Nabal's property, but instead of causing trouble, they've actually been acting as a security force for his shepherds and his flocks. In fact, Nabal's own people said David's men were like a wall around us, protecting them 24/7. But you know how these things go. This fragile peace is about to get blown to bits. It's sheep shearing season, which is a big festival time, and David sends a message, making what he thinks is a totally reasonable request. He sends 10 of his men over with a really polite, super respectful message. He basically reminds Nabal, hey, we've been protecting your guys, and since everyone's celebrating, would you mind sharing some supplies with us? He's not demanding anything, he's asking. It's a pretty fair ask, right? And Nabal's response? Wow. He doesn't just say no, he goes on this incredibly insulting rant. He sneers, who is this David? Pretending he's never heard of the most famous warrior in the land. He calls David's men a bunch of runaway servants and flat out refuses. In one short speech, he has just lit the fuse on a powder keg. So you can probably guess what happens next. You don't insult a proud warrior leader like that and expect him to just let it slide. David's reaction is swift, it's total, and it is absolutely lethal. There's no discussion, not even a moment's hesitation. The second David's men get back and tell him what Nabal said, his command is simple and chilling. Each of you strap on your sword. The mission for revenge is on. And get this, think about the scale of this response. We're not talking about a couple of guys going to rough someone up. We're talking 400 armed men. That is a small army, and they are marching with one purpose, to completely destroy Nabal and everything he owns. And just to make it crystal clear how serious he is, David swears a solemn oath to God. He vows that by morning, there won't be a single male left alive in Nabal's entire household. This isn't just a threat he can back out of. The stakes are now, quite literally, life and death for hundreds of people. Okay, so as this war party is getting closer, someone on the inside realizes this is an absolute catastrophe waiting to happen. One of the servants, smart enough to know his boss is a wicked man that no one can talk to, does the only thing he can. He bypasses Nabal completely and goes to warn the one person who might have a chance of stopping this, his wife, Abigail. And what does Abigail do? Does she panic? Not for a second. She acts. And I mean, she acts fast. She doesn't even tell her husband. She immediately puts together this massive supply train. We're talking hundreds of loaves of bread, skins of wine, dressed sheep, the whole 9 yards. This isn't just an apology gift. This is a logistical feat that proves she is a serious, capable leader. So when she rides out and intercepts David's army, what she does next is it's a masterclass in diffusing a crisis. First, she gets off her donkey, bows down to the ground, and takes all the blame on herself. Right away, that creates a connection. Second, she validates David's anger. She says, pay no attention to my husband, he's a fool. His name literally means fool. Third, and this is genius, she reframes the entire situation. She suggests that God is actually using her to stop David from doing something terrible and sinful. And finally, she appeals to his ego and his destiny, reminding him that he's going to be king one day, and a king's legacy shouldn't be stained with needless bloodshed. And just like that, it works. It absolutely works. David's rage completely dissolves. He sees her wisdom, and he actually praises her, thanking her for stopping him from making a horrible, irreversible mistake. With one brilliant conversation, the crisis is averted. So, the army has been stopped, and everyone's safe for now, but the story isn't quite over. We still need to see how this all plays out for our three main characters, because there is a final reckoning. So Abigail gets back home, and what does she find? Nabal is throwing a huge party, feasting like a king, completely drunk and totally oblivious to the fact that he and his entire household were just hours away from being annihilated. The next morning, when he's sober, she tells him everything. And the shock of how close he came, how his foolishness nearly got everyone killed, it's literally too much for him. His heart failed him, it says. Sounds like he had a massive stroke. And about 10 days later, he was dead. And right here, you can see the perfect breakdown of cause and effect. Nabal, with his arrogance and his insults, ends up dead. David, who flew into a rage but, and this is the important part, was willing to listen to wisdom, is saved from himself and his reputation is preserved. And Abigail, who responded with wisdom and courage, not only saves her entire household, but as we'll see, ends up elevating her own status. Because when David hears that Nabal is dead, he immediately thinks of Abigail. He sends for her and asks her to be his wife. It's the ultimate sign of respect. He recognizes that her wisdom and her courage are incredibly valuable, and he honors the woman who saved him from his own worst instincts. You know, this ancient story leaves us with a really powerful question, one that's just as relevant today. In any conflict, who holds the real power? Is it the one with the sword, the one with the army and the brute force? Or is it the one who has the wisdom, the courage, and knows exactly the right words to say at exactly the right time? This story makes a pretty strong case for the latter.